Konbanwa, that's Japanese for good evening. I'm Ingrid Ahlberg, and I'm glad to be here sharing Sogetsu Ikebana with you tonight. Sogetsu is one of many schools of Ikebana. Carrie, I'm seeing a black screen here on the main screen. Is everybody seeing me? Okay. It's the youngest of the schools, or one of the youngest of the schools. It was founded in 1926, so it's almost 100 years old. But the oldest one is about 600 years old and stems from the mix of Buddhist teachings. I like to think of it as living sculpture, thinking of lines and positive and negative spaces. I took lessons from Japanese teachers or senseis for 4 years while I lived in Okinawa in the late 1970s and another 9 years while I lived in northern Japan in the early 2000s. I find the focus it takes to complete a flower arrangement is quite meditative. I've been known to say doing a flower arrangement can cure a headache in 45 minutes. I'll stop for questions after each section that I do. I'm going to talk about the equipment and the materials, and then I'll do a low base arrangement, and I'll stop after the equipment materials section, and then I'll do a low base arrangement, and I'll stop after that, and then I'll do a tall base arrangement. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and Carrie will alert me. And I taught school for a very long time. I taught 7th and 8th graders mostly for about 18 years and preschoolers for 11. So I am used to answering questions kind of on the fly, believe me, but I haven't had to do a lesson in a while. Just some background information. Sensei Teshigawara believed that flowers can be arranged by anyone. So you don't have to worry that you don't have a lot of training or that you don't have a green thumb. They can be arranged by anyone. And flowers can be arranged and can be displayed anywhere. And let me explain that a little bit culturally. In Japan, most homes have a small niche where a flower arrangement can be displayed. And oftentimes a family will have a new arrangement there every week or two, depending on how long the flowers would last. Unlike here in the United States, I think we oftentimes think of flower arrangements maybe being on a dining table, but they can be displayed anywhere. And I'll move this over so you can see. This one I did this afternoon. Let me lift it up a little there so you can see the vase too. It's just a very simple thing that I did with a little vase that I got from a pottery store in Maine someplace. I can't remember to tell you exactly. Some of the daffodils that tomorrow's sunshine was going to wilt, and a little bit of greenery that need to be pruned off the bushes in my front yard. And that speaks to just about any material can be used for flower arranging. Now, let me talk a little bit about tools before I go on. I have with me, and we learned, a black outfit doesn't help when you're showing black tools. These are my Japanese shears. And I have seen similar ones at the Bedrock Gardens and in flower shops. So I think you can get something like this. They're very sharp. I have used them to cut wires when I needed wires for stabilizing stems. They'll cut branches. Sometimes I've been known to prune the crabapple tree in my yard with them. So they're very sharp. Then you couldn't see in this vase, but there's a tiny, about the size of between $1.25 and $1.50 that's a Kenzan or a little needlepoint holder in the hole where those flowers are coming out of, and it's glued to the bottom of the vase, so it's intended for that. This is a traditional holder that just has lots of bigger holes in it, but it's very heavy. And then needlepoint holders, frogs, as my mother would call them, Kenzan, as the Japanese called them, look like this. I have this big one, this smaller one that I'll probably use tonight. This one has a very nice rubber rim around it and extends to the bottom so it doesn't clank on the base or chip the base when you put it in. This lovely tiny one that just slides apart, if I can remember how to do it, so that if I need to use it, those smaller ones at opposite ends of a base, I can do that. I also have one that is enclosed in a nice brass base so that it could be set in a basket if you have a basket that you'd like to use and display flowers in the basket. I think that's all of the Kenzan that I have. So on to other materials. Even loopy things like this that remind me of the sticks that we used to put our balloons on when we were children. Pussy willows are wonderful in season. And these, I don't know that I would use these because they're dry, but pussy willows are great. I'm not sure where you would find these kinds of squiggly things. I've saved these from when I was using them in Japan. But things like these fancy grasses you might have in your yard if you have any decorative grasses. Even a feather. And some more curled balloon sticks. Bases, typically when you start taking Japanese flower arranging lessons, you start with a simple round low base like this. And I'll show the backside. You can see it's just poured ceramic, but it's got a high gloss glaze on it. I like to use black most of the time. I have a pair of these half moon ones that I can use either singly, which I like in a small space because I don't have to worry about a big rounded area coming by there. Or I can stack the two of them, one kind of diagonally across the other, and they're very interesting that way. I have several rectangular ones like this that I like to use if I want to have an arrangement that has two Kenzan, 2 points of focus within the arrangement, one at each end. This vase, I think, makes some very interesting arrangements. It's a little hard to see. It's really like a small satellite dish, to give you an idea. And the fact that it has the sloping sides makes for really interesting arrangements. The one thing about it is it's hard to do one that has a Kenzan on the side because it'll slide down. So you have to look for the unusual Japanese arrangement that has the Kenzan in the middle of the vase. It's usually asymmetrical. So that's that one. I think that's, and the tall vase. I only brought a couple of tall vases. I brought this one, just so you can see that you can use very unique hand-done pottery. Or, again, the simple black. This one's square. And this one is probably my favorite and most used one because it slides into this lovely little black basket that I have. Yeah, just some odds and ends of things. Florist wire. Those used to be straight until they got packed to move, but you can use that to tie ends of sticks together if you need branches in a cluster, or if you have something like a gerbera flower or something that has a pretty flimsy stem and you want to be able to bend it to make a certain shape, it's easy to slide one of those really thin wires up the stem to give it some stability. Or just plain this kind of wire that looks, it's just florist wire for tying things together. And florist tape can do the same thing. Sometimes when you do an arrangement, there are not a lot of flowers or greens down close to the pins on, so you want to camouflage them a little bit. So you might use, I'll show you, little stones, pebbles. And they are a little hard to do on the camera, I think. See those. These very small black ones I got in Japan, and so they'll cover more easily because they're small, but they spill easily too. These that I haven't even opened the bag yet are multicolored ones, and I think I got these at IKEA. And I'm sure you can get them in a garden center for like bird feeders or things like that, or bird baths, pardon me. Something else that I have but have not used frequently are these little, they look like squished marbles that somebody had hot glass and then just squished them down and turned them into marbles, or just let them drop down. Those can cover a can on too. And they come in lots of different colors and are available at craft stores. And let me not forget, a basic kitchen bowl, and I'm not going to tip this because it is filled with water, for cutting your stems in so that they stay fresh. And I'm looking at my collection and I think I've covered everything that I have for equipment. So if anybody has any questions about equipment or vases, if not, I'll move on to materials. Japanese arrangements call for long pieces. You typically use an odd number combinations of 3. It will look like 5 when you get it done, but they'll call for some kind of branch quite often, which is a little bit harder to find in an American flower shop. The other thing that you can use, which I think is more commonly available, are these long leaves. I've used some of the Monstera leaves too, that are really very effective. I found, move this out of the way a little bit. I found that I need to go into the flower shop, look around and think about what is available that looks like it's going to last for a little bit and what things seem to work together. Now, today when I looked, let me destroy them. I thought these long variegated branches would look lovely with these peonies. And it may just be that I love the peonies because my mother always had them. And I'm going to use these anemones with these long green leaves. But it took me a while looking to see what I thought might work together. I think that is all the materials and the equipment. I will tell you that when I took my first classes, we started with this book from Sensei Teshigawara, and it's in English. I have some spares because at one point I thought I might be able to teach classes in Sogetsu and then just got very busy with my day job, so couldn't do it. So I have a few spares that I've left with the library, and if you're interested enough that you want to have a book to work with, they'll be there and you can make a donation to the library for them. So just ask at the front desk. This one is only for the low base arrangements, and there's not an equivalent for the tall base arrangements. Only tall base book I have is one that's strictly in Japanese, and I can't read it, but I can follow the pictures. But I don't have any spares of that one. All right, I am going to do one low base arrangement. I think we figured out how to get it up here so you can see what's going on. You'll be seeing the back side while I'm doing the arrangement because I couldn't quite figure out how to see over the front. So I will turn it around as I progress so you can see what I'm doing and see what it looks like in the end. Are there any questions about the materials? Okay. This is my new handy dandy water pitcher, so I have water to work in. There are three basic parts for the arrangement: the shin, soy, and the kai. The shin is the longest one, and it is supposed to be 1.5 times the diameter and the depth of the vase, which I think is going to be a little hard to see because I can't lift the water-filled vase and show you how I'm measuring it. So 1.5 times the height and the depth. So I'm going to end up cutting off about 3 inches at the bottom. I tend to cut a little long because I can always cut a little shorter and you can't put the stem back on. This one has a woody stem, so I'm going to cut it at an angle. And I'm going to open my book so that I can see what I'm doing. When you put the materials in, especially the things with the woody stems, you put them straight down to secure them, and then you gradually, with your hand, your fingers close to the needle point holder, I have mine right on it, press it down. This one has to go to a 45-degree angle. And just a side note on that, I went in to get my COVID booster last week and the pharmacist asked me if I had any other questions. I said, yes. Can I get my when can I get my tetanus shot? She said, today. I said, good, because I'm doing an Ikebana arrangement next week or a demo for the library and I need to have my tetanus shot updated because it expires in July. So yes, you are working with sharp tools, things that might get rusty. So make sure your tetanus shots are up to date. So that's the shin and it's at 45 degrees and it's not only the angle this way, but a little bit this way too. A little bit to the front. And then the soy is 3/4 of the length of the shin. So I'm going to be pretty close to where the leaf starts on that one. I'll check and see. One of these leaves is a little shorter. No. Mother Nature can be precise. This one will go at about 15 degrees back, so not very far back. And just a little to my right. And the last one I'm going to be cutting, it's probably going to be a little long because I'm going to leave part of the base there. Actually, that one I will have to use. I think I will change up materials on that. I'm not sure what these are. They look and smell a little bit like rosemary or thyme. Short leaves like thyme. And I put those in, there's a little bit of a curve to them. I put them in so that they curve as if they're looking for me, looking this way, looking at whoever's watching them. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the curve. I don't know if you can see it there. There's a little curve between the leaves and the blossom on the anemone. Maybe easier to see from behind. Trying to figure out which of these, when I put it in the position for the hikai, will look to the center and at the observer. And flowers, as compared to branches, are cut straight across rather than diagonally. And the hikai is 3/4 to 1/2 of the soy. So I'm going to cut it here, and if I have to, I will shorten it. I will shorten it. Again, put it in straight and try to slant it down gently. And then the complements to each of them comes in. So this one is going to complement my shin. So I'm going to put it so that it shadows the angle of the shin. And I want to have it at a slightly different height. I don't want it to be the same height as the one that's in the front. Gets a little tricky. Another 3/4 of an inch off. Do a little bit more. I'm inclined to think of this as a little bit of a filler, just to, so there's not too much blank space. With negative and positive spaces, but not necessarily blank spaces. All right, I think that one's good to go. Now, Carrie, you're on a bigger screen. Does it show?
Ingrid, you are.
I'm behind it.
It looks beautiful. What a beautiful arrangement. So elegant. Really lovely.
Okay, so that's a Ikebana arrangement. If you'd like to ask any questions about that, I'll move it over here so that we can get the other one in.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to put in the chat for Ingrid? You can raise your hand if that would be easier. That's fine too. It looks like there aren't any questions just yet.
Okay, then I will start with the let's see. The nigiri is a little bit trickier to do, and I won't tip this too far because well, you know what? Give me a moment to pour off some of the water. And the top of that vase, and the color may be hard to see, I've put a couple of sticks, and actually the ones that are in there, I propped in a long time ago. They just make a little cross, so that there basically are 4 holes that I'm working with for balancing the materials that I put into this vase. So the tall vases are a little bit trickier to do because you have to deal with the balance either off the side of the vase or in those spaces around those sticks. And when I'm doing one, and I did today, I deliberately bought something that was kind of woody at the bottom so that I could, if I needed to, I could cut 2 pieces off to fit inside of that vase. I don't know that I'm going to have to, but you may see me doing that. Okay. Again, 1.5 times the height and the diameter, or the depth and the diameter. So 1.5. I'm going to use the other one because that one, I'll tell you why I'm using the other one. When I looked at this, I realized it has a nice second branch that I want to use for the soy when I use it. So I'm going to leave that one intact and use one that doesn't have one of those secondary branches for my first branch. So 1.5 times the height and the diameter. So, and branches are cut at an angle, and you can't see it, but I have a bad habit of getting my ring finger too close to where the ends of that shears come together. Okay, I am looking at the front, and I am going to try to angle this off, and it doesn't come as low as I want it to. Trick that you can do when you're working with branches, you hold your hands together like that. You can gently, with some branches, just gently bend it until it bends and flexes. But it works best if you have your hands together like that. And as I'm doing this, I'm feeling a little bit of a snap in there. This one may be a little bit less flexible than, say, the pussy willow, and the pussy willow is great. One of the things when you have the angle is sometimes that angle really helps for bracing it against the side of the base. I am still going to be bending this a little more. Sometimes a little twist will help. Twist brought a leaf off. There, that'll work.
Ingrid, we do have one question in the chat.
Sure.
Sue asks, is it okay to use any type of flowers and branches for these arrangements?
Sure. I mean, that is one of the primary advice that Sensei Teshigawara gave is any materials and anybody and any place. And I am going to get some information to Carrie to send out to you after this, when she sends out the evaluation survey. There is a group in Kittery that does classes, and I think they do them mostly in the summer so that you can use materials that are in your garden, kind of like I did today with the daffodils. So yes, just about any materials, and you can modify them. Like this has a lot of leaves on it. My sensei would probably have said, okay, get a little radical here, snip, snip, loosen it up, too full, snip, and I might yet do some more of that. But for right now, I'm going to leave it until I look at the end product. The second one I mentioned, I liked that little side branch on there. So I now have to get this to be about half of what that is, which brings me just below that side branch. There, I pinched myself again. And this one is going to be a little bit more upright, and I have to sneak it in so that it really looks like it's behind the one that I've been. I have to move that one over just because there's going to be no behind it if I leave it where it is. I think it's too long. And this is where I say the 12A stuff is a matter of balancing a lot. Now, you can see this one was snipped top and bottom. I don't knock the thing over. And I'm going to see if I can tuck that in, hide that snipped stem, and have it work as that little piece that I want coming off the side. Yeah, this one needs to be half of that, so. Do it here. Work right here. I should have been cutting them in water, but I'm looking at them and sizing them up, so I haven't been. We'll do that again. I'm turning the branch a little bit so that there seems to be like backside or an underside of the branch. And I see why it was going the other way. It doesn't want to angle this way. There. Now, if I can turn it around and not have it come totally unbalanced. There, I think you can see it. Okay, I think that's all that I had in my notes that I needed to be sure to tell you. Just a reminder that yes, you can use those things that are in your garden. You don't need to go out and buy things. All right. Domo arigato.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ingrid.
You're most welcome.
That is so lovely. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.